Ma'am, what will be the syllabus for mid semester?
See the first two units that you did for NCP, and in addition to that, the unit on trademarks and the unit on GIs. So
Oh,
4 units in total.
okay.
Yeah. Can you all see the PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we were to start with the topic as to what kinds of rights a GI provides. A geographical indication right enables those who have the right to use the indication to prevent its use by a third party. So the uniform principle that all IPRs follow, that it is a negative right, you can prevent others from encroaching upon your product, is what GIs also follow. You can prevent its use by a third party whose product does not conform to the applicable standards. For example, in jurisdictions in which Darjeeling geographical indication is protected, producers of Darjeeling tea can exclude the use of the term Darjeeling for tea not grown in their tea gardens or not produced according to the standards set out in the Code of Practice for the GIs. So they can prevent any tea that is not grown in their tea gardens or their authentic area from where the authentic Darjeeling tea produced comes from. They can prevent them from using the term Darjeeling tea. However, a protected GI does not enable the holder to prevent someone from making a product using the same techniques as those set out in the standards for that indication. So the people who make the authentic Darjeeling tea, the methods they use, the kinds of seeds they use, they cannot prevent others from using those techniques and seeds because in GIs we don't protect the knowledge. Please be very clear in this respect in your minds about GIs. We don't protect the knowledge. So any technique or the method of producing your protected uh, product, anybody else can prepare it, but they can't just use the name. So they can create the same tea if they are able to, but they can't use the term Darjeeling for selling those teas. Protection for a GI is usually obtained by acquiring a right over the sign that constitutes the indication. The sign that I put on the first slide, that's the logo that we put on like protected products. What kinds of goods can be protected? GIs are typically used for agricultural products, foodstuffs, wine and spirit drinks, handicrafts, and industrial products. Now, a very interesting fact about GIs are that they had originated from Europe. So, Europe is the first country who had started creating their own wines and their own alcoholic drinks, basically, particularly wines. Now, there, the types of grapes that they used to use, the kind of techniques that they used to use, everybody slowly started copying it all over the world. And today, so we see wines being sold everywhere, but the original wines were invented by Europe. Now they wanted to protect their like the name of European wines, especially because people in USA, people in a lot of other countries started selling wines that they created in their own countries under the name European wine, just to sell it more and for better marketing. So Europe wanted to protect their name. That okay, you want to create wines, you create wines, but don't use our name because we are not selling that inferior quality wines that you are, and people will think that European wines are not that nice. So that is how the question of protecting the geographical indications began years ago. And then in India also and all other countries it started. Then TRIPS also required that you have everybody has to protect GIs. So we have GI provisions in TRIPS also. Now, how is it developed in India? In India, the legal system for GI protection has very recently been developed. The Geographical Indications of Goods Registration and Protection Act was enacted in 1999 and came into force in 2003, which we call the GI Act. The need for now, if you guys bought the Consolidated Bear Act, which I asked you to, so it also has the GI Act after I think the Patents Act, I guess. So you can also go through the sections that I've mentioned in the PPT from the Bear Act. The need for a separate legislation for GIs in form of the GI Act was felt in India due to two reasons. First, the controversial patenting of basmati rice by a US-based company, Rice Tech, and the widespread report of tea from other countries being passed off as Darjeeling tea. So there were two initial case studies that compelled India to create their own laws for GI protection, patenting of the basmati rice by Rice Tech, and the widespread report of tea from other countries being passed off as Darjeeling tea. So I myself, I had gone abroad once and I saw a lot of brands selling tea in the name of Darjeeling tea, especially from India and everything, and they were all fake. I mean, they were all original products, but they were not the original Darjeeling tea. So they were infringing GIs. India realized that if it needed to protect its own geographical indications globally, it needed to protect them at the national level to begin with. The second reason is related to institutional commitment. Being a signatory to TRIPS, India is obliged to set into place national intellectual property laws, which also include GI laws. So the first reason was the patenting of Basmati and the Darjeeling tea being passed off, that their authentic products are being sold by other people in their name. And second reason was because institutional commitment, meaning a treaty that was formed for everybody to comply with, and TRIPS also required that we protect GIs, every country protects GIs. So to comply with TRIPS and its standards, GI laws had to be curated. So two reasons why GI Act came into force in India. The new GI Act has an elaborate procedure for registering GIs at an office located in the southern city of Chennai. Authorities claim that this act has two key characteristics. First, protection of producers against counterfeiting and misleading commerce, and second, striking of balance between trademark and GI protection. According to this act, once a GI is registered, any person claiming to be the producer of the good designated by the GI can file an application for registration as an authorized user. The GI Act is to be administered by the Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks, who is the Registrar of GIs. The GI Act came into force on 15 September 2003, followed by the first GI registration in India. This is important. Which GI was the very first GI to be registered in India? It is Darjeeling tea. So just after a month of the Act coming into force, Darjeeling tea was registered. Since then, GI registration has come a long way. We have 120 GI registrations till date. Now, what is the criteria for registration? Like we did in copyright, what is the subject matter of copyright? Then we did in trademarks, the grounds of refusal, that what cannot be registered. Now here we come to what can be registered on GIs and what cannot be registered. So we have two kinds of categories here. GIs are valuable property to producers from particular geographical region. They have three conditions for registration. First, they identify goods as originating in a particular territory or region or locality in that territory. So first we have that the goods must originate from a particular territory. So originating is the first criteria. Second, they suggest the consumers that the goods come from an area where a given quality, reputation, or other characteristics of the goods is essentially attributable to their geographical origin. So the quality which the goods contain are attributable to their geographical conditions. So it could be soil, climate, techniques, knowledge, anything of the people or the actual geographical area. So the characteristics should be essentially attributable, the second requirement. Third, they promote the goods of producers of a particular area. So the thing that I talked about the other day, that local producers must be encouraged and Indian local producers must be promoted more. So that's what GIs also advocate for. So these three are the conditions for registration. This is very important. Please study this properly. When a GI can be registered or what are the conditions for GI registration. I don't want random answers in the paper. Please don't Google things and write whatever you find the first thing. NCP, I asked for the Vienna Agreement and people are writing Vienna Agreement on treaties. Just because it was the first thing you found on Google, you copied it without even seeing it's not even related to IPR. Please don't be so foolish. I read all answers. And I've given zero, I've not even given like even a point one to attempt the question. I will give zero. So why do you want to lose out on marks? Please write sensible answers. At least write something related to IPR. You can't write Vienna Agreement on treaties. Please. Other factors to be considered. Section 9 of the GI Act prohibits the registration of certain GIs. Now, what GIs can't be registered? Section 9 talks about that. Confusion regarding GI may be visual or phonetic in nature. Visual meaning when we see it, phonetic meaning when we hear it, i.e., contextual confusion or as to the trade origin. The purchaser should not be deceived or induced to believe that the goods sold under the GI emanates from the same trade source. So just like in trademarks, we say there must not be deceptive similarity, the consumers must not be confused. The same principles of infringement also apply to GIs. Where producers apply for registration of GI, which are used in contravention of the provisions of any existing statute, the application shall be refused. So if the applicant of GI is contravening any provision of any statute, we will not give him registration. A GI which comprises or contains scandalous or obscene matter is not registrable. This is very obvious. This is also a ground of refusal in trademarks under Section 9, absolute ground. So when you are studying like these conditions of registrations and or refusals, so please try to connect with other IPRs. It makes it easy for you to remember because like being scandalous or obscene is there in both GI and trademarks. So you can just relate like this and it will help you retain better. So these are factors wherein a GI will be refused. A GI which comprises or contains any matter likely to hurt religious susceptibilities of any class or section of the citizens of India is not registrable. Again, a similar ground like trademarks. A GI which would otherwise be disentitled to protection in the court is not registrable. For any reason wherein a magistrate is likely to or would refuse registration, our registrar will at that stage only refuse it before going to the court. Whether the name has become generic, has lost its original meaning and has become a common name account, has become generic account shall be taken care of. All factors, including the existing situation in the region or place. Basically, this talks about things like champagne. So champagne has now become a generic term for a category of alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink that people use at celebrations, they pop the bottle and all. Before champagne became a generic name, it was actually a kind of spirit only sold in Europe. It was a name of a company that had created a particular spirit. Now we call champagne as a category of alcoholic drink. So we don't go to the market and ask for any champagne. We have different brands of champagne because champagne has become generic. So this is an example. So where a name has become generic, we don't usually give them protection because again, just like in trademark also, the term Xerox and sellotape, I had used the examples, which have become generic even though they were registered trademarks before. But over years, after becoming generic, you lose all the protection. Registration of homonymous GIs. Now, homonymous GIs in the last slide, I'll do it then only. Now, what GIs cannot be registered? Section 9 is discussed here in short. Section 9 of the GI Act provides for what GIs cannot be registered. First, use of which is likely to deceive or cause confusion. Second, which would be contrary to any law for the time being in force. Third, which comprises of scandalous or obscene matter. Fourth, which comprises any matter likely to hurt religious sentiments. Fifth, which would otherwise be disentitled to protection in a court, which are determined to be generic names. And last, which although literally true as to the territory, region, or locality in which the goods originate, but falsely represent to the persons that the goods originate in another territory, as the case may be. So I'm claiming that my goods are originating from Banaras, but they're actually, I have locally produced them in Delhi. So here I am not entitled to sell them under the GI tag of Banaras. Now, for how long can a GI be protected? Like we have different terms for all IPs. For copyright, 60 years, author lifetime for 60 years. For trademarks, we have 10 years initially, and then it can be renewed after every 10 years. So GIs similarly have the same rule as trademarks. Section 18 provides the term. GIs initially are granted for a period of 10 years, and then you can renew it after every 10 years. Now, how are GIs different from trademarks? This is a very common question that you get in exams. GIs identify a good as originating from a particular place. In contrast, a trademark identifies a good or service as originating from a particular company. So if you see, GIs are of a geographical nature and trademarks are more of like commerce and trade oriented. A trademark often consists of a fanciful or arbitrary sign. In contrast, the name used as a GI is usually predetermined by the name of the geographical area. So you can't play with the name of the GI because if it's a Banarasi sari, the tag has to be in the name of that because Banaras has to be used. So and the sari is being sold by Banaras. So GIs you can't really play with the name; they are predetermined. But for trademarks, you can put any fanciful or arbitrary sign. Finally, a trademark can be assigned or licensed to anyone, anywhere in the world, because it is linked to a specific company and not to a place. In contrast, GI cannot be assigned or licensed. We've already done because they are attributable or conditioned to be from a particular geographical area. They cannot be transferred or assigned. And trademarks, since they don't pertain to a place but to a company, you can obviously license or assign them, as we've discussed before. So these are three differences between trademarks and GIs. GIs are as valuable as trademarks, yet the functions of GIs are different from that of trademarks. Trademarks are owned by enterprises and used to identify products and services in the market, in particular to distinguish them from competing products and services, whereas a GI never belongs to a particular enterprise. A GI can be used by several enterprises at the same time, provided that the products for which it is used originate in the geographical area to which the indication refers. So GI does not bar people from using the tags, provided they are creating the product in the geographical area. They are not creating it elsewhere in the world and claiming them to be originating from that area. So you don't have to lie about the geographical origin of the product. You are allowed to use the tag in such cases. Now we have the category of homonymous GIs. This is also a very common question and one-liners like what are homonymous GIs or something. So you should know what they are. Homonymous geographical indications are those that are spelled or pronounced alike, but which identify products originating in different places. So, which are spelled or pronounced alike. So the words are very similar, but they identify products in different places. They are actually from different, say, corners of India, but the term is very similar in visually also and phonetically also. In principle, these indications should coexist, but such coexistence may be subject to certain conditions. So our Act provides that two similar GIs can coexist, but certain conditions will be put. For example, it may be required that they be used only together with additional information as to the origin of the product in order to prevent consumers from being misled. So if I'm being allowed to coexist with another person who is selling the same, who is using the same GI tag or a very similar GI tag, then we may be put with the condition that we will provide extra information along with the tag to not mislead the consumers. So we will tell them that this is grown in India and the other GI tag is being grown in, say, California, and we are different proprietors, different geographical origin. We are not similar, we are not associated, and basically you make the consumers more informed, but you could be very similar. A GI may be refused protection if, due to the existence of another homonymous indication, its use would be considered potentially misleading to consumers with regard to the product's true origin. Now, if the California GI tag is being used before I come into the market, and there is apprehension that by my coming into the market, the consumers can be misled because, say, for example, India and California have a very strong trade bond, and the trade and the products are imported and exported on a large scale. Consumers can be misled on the ground of confusion of consumers. I can be refused protection under the GI tag, which is similar to that of California. So this is totally subjective and depends on the facts of the case and how the registrar and the court wants to perceive it. So there is no straitjacket formula for this, but you should know what homonymous GIs are. Now that's it for the introduction to GIs and the registration criteria. Now we have the procedure for registration under the GI Act. First, we have the GI registry. The Geographical Indications Registry is set up for administration of the GI Act with the object to provide registration and better protection of GIs relating to goods. The GI registry is situated at Chennai. A total of 326 GIs have been registered since 15 September 2003, including 29 logos and 14 foreign GIs. The registry has been organizing awareness programs throughout India to promote Indian GIs. The sectors being focused are tea, coffee, spices, agriculture and horticulture products, handloom products, handicrafts, textiles, processed food items, dairy products, natural goods, spirits, and wines. Registrar of GIs has been talked about in Section 3 of the Act. The Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks appointed under subsection 1 of 3 of the Trademarks Act shall be the Registrar of GIs as well. The central government may appoint such officers with such designations as it thinks fit for the purpose of discharging under the superintendence and direction of the registrar such functions of the registrar under this act as he may from time to time authorize them to discharge. Section 4 talks about the power of registrar to withdraw or transfer cases, etc. Without prejudice to the generality of the provisions of subsection 2 of 3, the registrar may, by order in writing and for reasons to be recorded, withdraw any matter pending before an officer appointed under the said subsection. So here, when we're talking about that the registrar may appoint such officers, he can withdraw matters from those officers and deal with such matter himself, either novo or from the stage it was so withdrawn. Basically, from the stage wherein the officer had left it, or he can start from beginning, was so withdrawn, or transfer the same to another officer so appointed, who may, subject to special directions on the order of transfer, proceed with the matter. Categories of GIs, I've put the link here. You can open the link and see for the categories yourself. It was a very long document, so I didn't feel like putting it here. And it's just for your extra knowledge purpose. You can just go through the list once for better understanding. That's it. Now, what is the registration procedure of GIs? This is important from midterm point of view. Various stages of filing and granting of geographical indications are explained in Figure 1. In the first step, the producer's organization or a collective body of producers, like the Tea Board of India, for example, has to file an application in the prescribed form to the GI authority in India. So the first step is that the organization of the producers has to file an application. For example, the Tea Board of India wants to apply for Darjeeling tea, so they will file the application before the GI authority. What are the details that are to be included in the application for GI? I think I omitted to put the figure. So I had made a flowchart for this thing, figure 1. I'll put it before uploading the PPT. What details are to be incorporated in the application? First, how the indication serves to designate the goods as a GI, the class of goods, the territory, particulars of appearance, particulars of producers, an affidavit of how the applicant claims to represent the interest, the standard benchmark or other characteristics of the GI, particulars of the special characteristic, textual description of the proposed boundary, the growth attributes in relation to the GI pertinent to the application. So these are things that are to be included in the application. Certified copies of the map, special human skills involved, number of producers, and particulars of inspection structures. You need not remember all these points, obviously. You can just remember 3 or 4 and write them. This application will then be examined by experts appointed by the GI registry. So the first step is that of application. Second is examination. If accepted, then the application will be advertised in the GI journal. So advertisement is the third stage. However, if the application is objected by experts, then a hearing will take place in special courts designated for GI purposes. If the court refuses to recognize the genuineness of the application, then the applicant can further appeal to the High Court. Now, this procedure you have to know properly. After advertisement in a GI journal, if the application did not receive any objection from any public organization or individual, then it is deemed as accepted to be awarded GI certification. However, If any individual or producer organization or NGO objects the validity and genuineness of the GI, then again the applicants can appeal to the High Court and a hearing takes place. If allowed, the application goes for acceptance and registration certificate is issued. Okay, the figure is here. This is the like the procedure.
Ma'am,
Yeah, tell
I,
me.
I just wanted to know the grounds on which they'll raise objection, because my confusion here is GI
Hmm.
basically, you obtain GI mark to show that this product was made in a particular. So say there is
Yeah.
A and B, both A and B are making Kolhapuri chappal. So obviously
Hmm.
both want to get the GI tag. So how, in what way can anyone raise objection?
See, here, if both people are making authentic Kolhapuri chappals in Kolhapur, then they both will be authorized users. Because more people can be if they're producing it authentically in that area. So they then become not GI owners, but authorized users, they are called. So they can legally produce and sell it, there's no problem. Because geographical territory is too large for just to, grant protection to one person. So more people can be awarded, but they will be called authorized users, not GI owners. Is it clear, Sarah?
Yeah. And also one more thing, how can
Hmm.
someone confusion to the customer by getting a GI? Please can you cause confusion? I want more clarity on that.
Cause confusion as in,
Like
so
they
for example, I'm
first,
sitting in Delhi and I'm selling saris in the name of Banarasi saris, which are not created in Banaras. I'm confusing public as to whether these saris are authentic Banarasi saris. So if you go to Chandni Chowk in New Delhi, they will claim that these are original Banarasi saris, these are original Lucknowi kapda and everything, but they're not. So the consumers are getting confused. Since we now know that GIs are there and they are not authentic, so we will be careful in buying those. But more than half of Delhi buys stuff from Chandni Chowk, thinking that they're buying original stuff, but they are not. They're just imitated from machines. So Lucknowi is actually hand woven by artists in Lucknow only. That technique is not present anywhere in any other part of the country. But they still claim now. So that is how you're deceiving and confusing customers with respect to the original products by selling imitated products. It's similar to how we confuse public in cases of infringing trademarks. That's how we do it in GIs also.
so one last question, ma'am. Who finally
Mhm.
the others who authorize users? So who
Your voice is cracking. Please repeat.
am I clear now?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to know, like, if others would be authorized users, then who would be the only one to buy owner?
See, usually in cases of GIs, we have boards or organizations, collective organizations that apply for the GI and then they make authorized users other like to other producers. So, for example, the Tea Board of India will be the main authority or organization that applies for the GI, and then it will make authorized users to producers who are actually creating Darjeeling tea, for example, in Darjeeling. So the Tea Board of India will be the owners, and other small producers will be authorized users. So when it comes to cases of like filing suits or filing infringement or whatever defense suits, so here the Tea Board of India will be the filing party, and the authorized users will go to the Tea Board of India and tell them that our GIs are being infringed in this manner by this person, and the Tea Board of India will then file an infringement suit. So first the suit goes before the registrar, then the aggrieved party can appeal to the High Court.
Okay, ma'am. So that applies for everything, Kolhapuri and all those things.
Yeah, yeah, all
They
GIs, all
and
GIs.
they are the ones who authorize them to produce.
Yeah, the boards
I
or
mean,
the organizations collectively. Because see, India is a very sensitive country with respect to local producers and handicrafts and everything. They are very protective and sensitive about it. They will not let private enterprises or organizations or even private persons to apply for a product which is locally grown or produced by farmers or handicraft people or artisans and all. They will definitely protect it in some like a government body or a collective organization. So like we have copyright societies, like Javed Akhtar is heading the copyright societies for singers. So they have they have protected it properly so that no new upcoming singer can take away rights and be all dominating in the market. That's how they operate in GIs also. So they, like the Tea Board of India, will protect all authorized users that produce Darjeeling tea, and they will make sure that everybody is protected, but they will not give autonomy in their hands also. They will keep all the power with themselves so that, no one person can come and start dominating the market. So it's a collective body with a proper panel who will take care of everything, but they will make producers the authorized users.
Oh,
Is,
okay. Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
any other doubt?
Yeah, that's it. So basically, T board will always be the plaintiff, and whoever infringes, they are going to be the defenders.
Yeah, and T-board matlab, will make parties, or any authorized user that wants to be a party to the suit, they can be made the parties.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome. What is the duration of grant? As I told you before, Section 18 provides that registration of a GI, an authorized user, shall be for a period of 10 years. Both the registration may be renewed from time to time on payment of prescribed fee for a term of 10 years from the date of last renewal. So this makes the registration of GIs for an indefinite period. So apart from trademarks, we have another IPR which provides IPR protection for an unlimited amount of time. However, if the renewal is not effected within the prescribed or extended time, the GI or the authorized user, as the case may be, is liable to be removed from the records. Provision is also made for restoration of registration. So if you fail to renew, you will be removed, but there are again provisions for restoration. What are the rights granted? Section 21 confers rights on a GI owner. First, to the registered proprietor and authorized users, the right to obtain relief in respect of infringement of such GIs. This is important. Please do this properly. Section 21. To the authorized user, the exclusive right to use the GI in relation to goods in respect of which the GI is registered. The right of authorized user to use GI is subject to the conditions and limitations to which the registration is subject. Two or more authorized users shall have co-equal rights. The Act makes it clear that the rights conferred by registration shall not be assigned, transmitted, licensed, pledged, or mortgaged under Section 24. Because GIs are not transferable, so they cannot be transferred by any such manner. This is claimed by Section 24. According to Section 21N, in relation to GI means any association of person or of producer or organization for the time being entered in the register as the proprietor of GI. Now, this was the registration procedure, which you guys have to do thoroughly. This is important from a midterm point of view. This is a very big hint, so please don't mess up the answers. I'm very disappointed by the NCP answers. Please don't repeat it in the midterms. This is a very small topic. Infringement and passing off of GIs. Section 22 talks about infringement of GIs. A registered geographical indication is infringed by a person who, not being an authorized user thereof, when is a GI infringed? First, uses such GI by any means in the designations or presentations of goods that indicates or suggests that such goods originate in a geographical area other than the true place of origin of such goods in a manner which misleads the persons as to the geographical origin of such goods. So you are claiming that your goods originate from that area when they do not, and you are misleading the customers. Second, uses any GI in such manner which constitutes an act of unfair competition, including passing off in respect of registered GIs. When is the trademark infringed is also important. Now here, in some cases, if you don't remember the section, although I know you guys will be opening all the material and writing answers, but anyway, if you even omit to write the section number somewhere, it doesn't matter, but please don't like ruin the content. Please write the correct provisions. Third, it uses another GI to the goods which, although literally true to the territory, region, or locality in which the goods originate, falsely represent to the person that the goods originate in the territory, region, or locality in respect of which the registered GI relates. So, if the example is, so I, like just as we were discussing right now, there's a Tea Board of India, and the Tea Board of India will allot the designation of being authorized users to different producers. say for example Darjeeling tea only. Now there is a community which owns the GI for now. So there is another person who also lives in Darjeeling but who's not yet a registered user or an authorized user. That person starts selling authentic Darjeeling tea grown in Darjeeling and uses the GI tag owned by the community. Since he is not yet an authorized user, he is not allowed to do that. He has to take permission from the Tea Board of India, or he has to get himself registered as an authorized user for him to use the GI tag. Although the goods may be authentic and original, but he can't use the tag yet. That's what C is saying. And if he does, he will be causing infringement under Section 22. When can a suit be filed? When can an infringement suit be filed? The suit for infringement of a registered GI can be filed or relating to any right in a registered GI or for passing off, arising out of the use by defendant of any GI which is identical or deceptively similar to the GI of plaintiff, whether registered or unregistered, shall be instituted before the district court having jurisdiction to try the suit. So remember this, GI suits are filed before the district court. That is the court within the local limits of whose jurisdiction the person instituting the suit actually and voluntarily resides or carries on business. So this is what the Act says, but usually what Tea Boards of India or any organization does is that they first go to the registrar. They go to the registrar. If the matter is solved out of court, then they prefer that because obviously you save on time and cost of the hearings and everything of filings. So if the registrar is not able to solve the problem or you are not happy with his decision, then you go to the district court. If you're not happy with that also, you appeal to the High Court. We have three kinds of civil remedies for GI infringements: injunctions, damages or accounts of profit, and delivery of infringing labels or indications. These remedies are inclusive and not exhaustive. The court may provide any other appropriate remedy as well. So apart from these other remedies, whichever powers of a civil court are, they can also be awarded. Now, I have not in detail explained these three remedies here because I've already explained it in other IPRs. They, in law, in the legal sense, mean the same. There is no difference. You have to remember what remedies are available for GIs. It's very important. These three, and you will also write that apart from this, any other appropriate remedy. Because this list is not exhaustive, if you don't write the last line, your answer will be half wrong. What is passing off? So passing off also means what we discussed in trademarks for unregistered trademarks. So in difference between infringement and passing off, I'm again repeating, infringement is for registered IPRs, passing off is for unregistered IPRs, be it trademarks or GIs. Please remember this. Don't use the term passing off for a registered trademark answer. Similarly, don't use infringement if I'm explicitly mentioning in the question that the trademark or GI is unregistered, please, when you see the term unregistered, and if I see the term infringement in the question, I will straight away cut marks. You have to write passing off. All remedies discussed before pertain to infringement of GIs as available for registered GIs. However, the same remedies can also be availed in cases of passing off. So the same remedies as infringement are also availed in passing off cases. In Scotch Whisky Association versus Golden Bottling Limited, the plaintiff brought an action for passing off against the defendant who was manufacturing and selling red Scotch whisky. The plaintiff argued that the word Scot and Scotch is a GI as it identifies the whisky of Scotland. Agreeing with the plaintiff, the court restrained the defendant from passing off its red Scot whisky as a product of Scotland. Damages of 5 lakhs were awarded to the plaintiff. Now, this is how you can also confuse the public. Like Salah was asking, so if I sell whiskey in the name of Red Scot, and everybody knows that Scot and Scotch whiskies are only like sold in Scotland, original whiskies, and sitting in another part of the world, I am selling Red Scot. People can easily think that I am selling the Scotland's whiskey, but I probably imported it and selling it here. They will not think that I am falsely selling it here. So that's why the court restrained them for not causing confusion in the minds of public with respect to the geographical origin of the whiskey. There is a provision in GIs for groundless threats of legal action. So where a person threatens another person by means of circulars, advertisements, or otherwise with an action or proceedings for infringement of a GI, So groundless threats I'm making to a person that I will sue you. The aggrieved party can bring a suit against the person making such threats and obtain a declaration to the effect that the threats are unjustifiable and an injunction or damages may be awarded to the complainant. So groundless threats of legal actions provision is provided in the GI Act. We have not yet heard about this in any other IPR, so this is a peculiar feature of GIs. Now here we end the main parts of GIs. I have created some case studies for you all. You will read these yourselves and you will read these before the next class, which we have on Thursday, I think. So please wait. There's a Darjeeling tea case study. Then we have the Pochampalli Ikkat. So you must have looked at these prints. It's a very common print. Almost every mother owns a suit or sari in this print. And the Basmati rice case study. So you will read these three case studies. These are also important for midterm point of view. And if you have any query in these, you will ask me. I will upload all the GI PPTs after the lecture ends. And please go through everything. And if you have any doubts, feel free to contact me because your exam is coming. So I want you guys to start studying. That's it for today. If you have any queries, you may start asking. Okay, then I'll end the lecture then. Thank you so much, everyone.